Awesome. Well, Kara, I'm so excited to be here with you. And in case folks aren't familiar with who you are, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Kara Francis. I am a marriage and divorce coach based out of Manhattan, but serving clients nationwide. I got my start as a divorce attorney working at law firms for over 6 years in Chicago and started my own coaching business over 3 years ago now. So that's sort of where I am today.
Awesome. Um, and my name is Maria Natapov. I'm a co-parenting and step-parenting coach. I'm based in right next door to Boston, Mass, but as Kara, serving every clients nationwide and really across the whole globe. And I've been doing this work for about 6 years. And prior to that, it's just been a lot of life experience that's led me down this path. I've kind of lived some version of divorce and or blended family journey and or adoptive mom journey and co-parenting journey in some shape or form, really from every aspect. So that's why I'm passionate about this work. So I'm really excited today, Kara, because we're going to be talking about love after divorce and kind of I'd love to hear what are your kind of main, I don't know, things that you share with people, things that you think should be considered for a successful way to move forward or as successful as possible.
So I, in working with my clients, like to help them view divorce as an opportunity. A lot of times, divorce in our culture is painted as something negative or to be ashamed of, or it means it's a failure or you made a mistake. And none of that is true. So it really is an opportunity to try again and apply what you learned from your past to your next relationship. And that requires a lot of deep inner reflection and work, raising
Mhm.
your awareness of the role you played in the demise of your first marriage. That in turn requires getting out of the victim mindset that the other person is 100% at fault. Everything happened to me. Even in the most contentious of divorces, each party plays some role in
Mm.
that process and in the breakdown of the relationship. And so it's important to raise your awareness of what that is, take accountability for it, and then decide how you want to show up differently and sort of envision what you want your next relationship to look like. And then when you have that vision, it's about what plan or action steps do I need to put in place to make my way towards that ultimate goal? What do I have to do? What support do I need? And how to get started with all of that.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think it's super clear. I think the other piece is really that I'd like to highlight within that is, and I think you kind of already spoke to it, is really clarifying our needs, right? And lessons learned, like looking back, what worked, what didn't work, right? What do we want more of, or what do we want to make sure now is present where maybe before it kind of was or wasn't at all? And really, like I'm hearing getting alignment in our values. What do we want to create for not only ourselves and this joint relationship, but really what will life look like going forward? And certainly if there's children involved, considering their needs as well is so important, because ultimately, if you're a parent, I think it just invites it not only for the children, but it invites so much heartache and turmoil and conflict for yourself as well, because you will, if you're not being intentional and considering all of those aspects and needs on the whole, then you're just sort of setting yourself up for being torn between your kids and your partner. And something that seems so wonderful at the beginning can quickly turn into just a whirlwind of pain for pretty much everybody involved. So, um, yeah. And I think to your point, it's a great opportunity because it's like you've already been through a breakup. So, this is a wonderful
Yeah.
chance to kind of learn from where you've come from to create something better and brighter for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, I personally don't have kids, so I can empathize up to a point, but things that I see a lot in my work are parents who put their children's needs first, which is great. And you're not just a parent, you are a human being, you are an individual, you have individual needs as well. And so it's about getting clear on what do I want as a person, and then weaving in your role or your identity as a parent, and how do we help those competing needs sometimes balance, coincide, and make sure that the new partner that we're with is going to facilitate that and is not going to be a barrier or an obstacle to you being able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another piece that for me plays into this is the idea of time. And I hate to kind of say that in a sense just because I know everybody's time frame is so different. And it's difficult to put a specific time limit or expected time stamp, I suppose, on some of this. But I do think that it provides an opportunity to clarify so that because the initial needs coming out of a relationship that didn't work or that left you wanting can seem like one thing, but they may not actually be your long term true needs and goals. It might just be your immediate needs because you've been left without those getting met for so long. And those, to your point, are also really valuable. So, this is not to say that parents shouldn't consider their own needs at all and put those on the back burner for the sake of their kids. That will lead to resentment. That will not allow you to be your authentic self. And all of this will be picked up by your children at some level. So, you're essentially setting them up to feel depleted and not getting their needs met in their future relationships, too. So, we don't want that.
Yeah.
However, just because you might meet somebody who might meet those immediate needs for you does not necessarily mean that you have to introduce them into your children's lives. And it doesn't mean that you need to instantly think of this as your forever. And you can just give yourself some space to breathe, live, explore, experience, and give yourself that time to clarify, is this really the long-term path for me? Does this
Mhm.
align with everything else that I am responsible for, with everything else I'm considering, with everything else that is there to really consider, right, in the long term?
Mhm.
And it's okay if the answer is no. This is a temporary, this is a temporary relationship, perhaps. But all of those opportunities are great learning experiences. And I think it is important to honor our own needs, but also do so with consideration of kids don't necessarily have to be involved with all of that right away. We can take time. And then when we have something more seemingly permanent, more stable, we can then explore whether it's a good fit for the kids.
Mhm. You shared so much that I want to dive into because there's a lot of good things to consider in what you shared. This idea of your next partner meeting your immediate needs versus your long-term needs. A lot of people who go through the divorce process are leaving a relationship where their former partner didn't validate them, respect
Yeah.
them, listen to them, um, didn't fulfill their basic intimacy needs, whether that's physical
Yeah.
or emotional. And so when you meet your next partner and they meet sort of that threshold, our basic human needs,
Yeah.
um, it can feel like, oh, I finally found my person. This is what it feels like. And it feels great. And there's nothing to discount that. It is a fabulous feeling compared to where you were. But as time goes on and you become accustomed to having your basic needs met, it's about going to the next level of, okay, this person is great as a romantic partner. Is this person going to be aligned and great as a life partner?
Yeah.
Because that's a completely different sort of analysis and reflection. Where do I want to live? How do I want to live?
Yeah.
How do I want to spend my time? All of those things are really important that maybe you don't get to in the very beginning of your relationship because you're
Yeah.
caught up in more of the honeymoon stage, and
Yeah.
it's about what's the bridge to the next phase? Is there a bridge to the next phase? And another thing I hear from my clients is they are hard on themselves because they feel like they wasted so much time being in an unhappy relationship that now they're like, okay, I know what I want and I just want to I want to figure it out ASAP because I've wasted so much time already. And it's not a waste of time. You had to go through the time period that you went through in your former relationship to get where you are now, to be ready for this new type of relationship now. And so we have to really release that pressure of we got to figure it out and we got to get it right as soon as possible, because that is completely, we put that on ourselves and we pick that up from culture and society, and it's a fiction.
Yeah.
And it results in a lot of people sort of forcing it with that next partner for a few different reasons. One, they may feel like this is the best I deserve, right? It's better than where I was, and this is as good as it's going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Or B, this person's okay and maybe not super aligned, but they're kind, respectful, and I don't want to waste any more time being single. I want to, build a new life with someone. So there's a lot of moving parts in all of this to consider and to not get swept away by those both external and internal pressures that we put on ourselves.
I totally agree with you. And I love what you said. What I heard you, I don't know if you directly said it or you were alluding to, but I strongly picked up on this is a growth journey. We're so want to just get there already, like whatever the there is for us in that moment, which by the way changes like 5 minutes later.
Right. The goalposts always move.
Yeah, constantly, because we're clarifying all the time as we're evolving, as we're growing. And what I really love is, yeah, when we've been in a relationship, or maybe even for a lot of us, we go into our first marriage still carrying all of the societal pressures, whatever it was we experienced culturally in our own family dynamics, and what was the quote unquote norm that we brought in, which sometimes it takes us diving into that to recognize, yeah, that does not fulfill me. That does not, that is not what I want to create. That doesn't feel very good. And so once we're finally ready to shed that, and it's a huge, courageous step to even recognize it and be willing to take the steps to shed that. To your point, it's not like we just instantly become the new version of ourselves. Like, it is an exploration period. We have to, I think I heard you say, the adjusting to having our basic needs met. And really it's the adjusting to all of that, the adjusting to having permission to explore, permission to say no, learning how to not only clarify for ourselves what we really want and need, but then how to communicate that is a whole nother piece to this puzzle that is not easy. So just, again, recognizing all of this is very exciting. No one is going to take it away from you. I think to some degree, there's almost that traumatic response of like, if I don't act on this now, I'm going to lose my opportunity and I'll be stuck. And
gotta lock it in.
Yeah. And that's not true. So just giving yourself the grace to breathe easier and explore and allow the reflection and the noticing. And that is both like your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations. It's a process. So recognizing and gifting yourself that gift. And the more that you do it, even though it may feel very uncomfortable, to finally have the space to sit with our wants and needs and feelings, it really does create beautiful spaces for new opportunities, for new ways of relating to our kids, to our partner, or the partners that we allow to flow into our experience, that we're sort of dancing in this co-creation with, and really our other relationships as well. And the other piece to consider is when things are getting serious, at some point, it is really wise to have a conversation with your kids just to emotionally prepare them, because often they're holding on to dreams of reunification for their parents much longer, and really for years beyond the separation. They're still thinking this is temporary, or something will shift, something will give. And so it's important to recognize that. So the more it has to be child appropriate, you don't want to throw them in, you don't want to overshare and put more on them than they need to know. But the basics of, hey, this really is a long-term change here. I know it can be difficult. I know it can be scary. what are your thoughts? What are your fears? Right? Like, and having the space and time to address that with them. And, likely they won't feel comfortable talking about it for a while. So this will probably take multiple attempts, but it's really valuable because it will set the foundation for them to start to that process of going through the motions of moving forward and starting to embrace this as the new future, um,
Mhm.
rather than kind of spinning in this in between space of like, are they going to? Are they not going to? Can we go back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when you finish your divorce, like it's important to put things into perspective. You already did the absolute hardest thing.
Yes.
You went through the divorce process with your kids and you made it to the other side. So if you feel hesitancy to adopt new approaches to how you live your life and how you interact with new partners, like
Yeah.
if you're still feeling hesitant about that, just know you already did something that is so hard. Anything else in comparison to that is you can do it, like
Yeah.
because it's down here compared to up here. Like don't go backwards, right? Don't throw away your progress because maybe it feels a little bit uncomfortable. Like lean
Yes.
in and know that it is going to be uncomfortable for a while because you're making a huge transition. You're learning not only how to have a better relationship with yourself, but also with potentially a new partner. And that brings with it so much. So I love what you said. It's a growth journey. There's no end goal. Um, and I also like what you said about when we do feel ready to start to introduce this other person to our kids, that it's multiple conversations. Because I say that to my clients when they're preparing to tell their spouse and kids that they're getting divorced, right?
Mhm.
When I help my clients prepare for those conversations, a lot of times they want to pack a bunch of information into that first conversation. And I say, first of all, as soon as you say, I want a divorce, they're not going to hear anything else. So don't even
Mhm.
try to discuss any other topics. Just deliver your decision. And that's the end of that conversation. And there will be more conversations, whether it is about them trying to change your mind or talk about the logistics of it all. And similar to your kids, when you tell your kids, your other parent and I are no longer going to be married, that takes multiple conversations. It is
Yes.
never a one and done thing. And I know as a society, we all just want to like check things off the list and be done and go on to the next thing. But sometimes it really is a one step forward, two steps back kind of
Yeah.
deal. And you just have to be okay with that and know that eventually you're you're moving in the right direction, even though it might not be as linear as you think.
Absolutely. That's so key. And having it's such a kind way to approach it too, because to your point, then you're not just doing it for your own goals of, well, I have this checklist of items that I need to address with you, but you're being kind and understanding this is hefty news, giving them time to process and really make sense of it and fully embrace it, to even understand what questions do they have, right? Like, are they ready to move this conversation forward? Because
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that have to happen now, to your point, and it's really important that you're moving at a pace that forward progress can happen. But if you rush it, then you're sort of setting the tone of, well, your needs don't matter, right? And it can be so easy, I think, for all of us to get caught up in conflict and this like justification of, well, they didn't this and right. Or, well, I need to that. And yeah, your needs matter. Your needs are important. But ultimately, especially if you're in the position where now you are the leader, right? You're bringing up something that is difficult, for whatever reason. Maybe other people just don't agree and don't feel that way. Or maybe they have their head in the sand and they're not ready and they're conflict avoidant and they're like, we're just going to ride this out because I don't want to deal with it. Whatever the reasons, you are having the courage to identify this and recognize this is a necessary step. And you are stepping into leadership with that, which is powerful. And this isn't to scare you away. Yes, you can do it. You're doing a great job, but it also comes right with great power comes great responsibility. And I think it is really valuable to really think how you approach these early steps sets the tone. And ultimately, if you think of that generosity of kindness and consideration and how will they receive this, where are they at, how will they feel about it, if you think about it, instead of, oh, now I have to, I don't owe them anything, but instead as an investment in your future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately all of that has an impact. It has a cascading effect. So if you think of that as an investment in your future, in your children's future, in your co-parenting relationship, which you're not getting divorced from, and I think many people forget that at the beginning, right? And then it will really, truly, I promise, it will pay dividends, even if you don't immediately see how it's going to benefit you. But it's
Mm-hmm.
strongly, strongly valuable to invest your energy into that aspect of how you handle things.
Yeah, and you raise a good point as far as the other co-parent, and I know we're getting into that topic more so in our
Yes.
stream next week, but that is also a conversation. So when we say there's multiple conversations,
Yeah.
usually even from a legal perspective, many parenting agreements require you to tell your co-parent before you introduce a new significant other to your kids. So
Yeah.
that's a whole conversation in and of itself that, I mean, I don't know which one's harder. They both are hard.
Yeah.
Especially because with your co-parent, even though you're divorced, you have all of that history there, and any conversation with them is going to be sort of heightened by emotions, but especially when it's you telling them, hey, I have a new partner, and,
Yes.
because it might also close the door for them too. Just like the kids might have some sort of far-flung wish that the parents will get back together. Maybe your co-parent also has, some sort of small hope that you two will get back together. Every
Yeah.
end of relationship is different. But we'll get into more of that next week. The one thing that I know we also wanted to talk on today is not only being clear on what your values and needs and goals are for your next relationship, but also what we're leaving behind. So things like people pleasing or avoiding conflict, passive aggressiveness, the silent treatment. I'm naming all of these off because these are things
Yeah.
that I did. And
Yeah.
I initially did bring into my current relationship, and I very quickly realized, oh, that may have helped me cope in a very unhappy relationship, but this is a completely different relationship, and it's not working, and it's not healthy.
Yeah.
So I feel like after the first 6 to 12 months with my current partner, you've got that honeymoon phase, you don't really argue about anything. Then, I feel like the next 2 or some years, there was definitely some growing pains of learning how to communicate my needs clearly and directly and respectfully, and not to avoid conflict, because I know now that causes the resentment and the frustration to build up, which leads to the passive aggressiveness and the silent treatment. It doesn't work.
No.
But they're hard tendencies and habits, those toxic habits. They're really hard to change because, again, they may have served you in your prior relationship. That's how I've been operating for 10 years in that former relationship. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that, as well as, from a personal and relational perspective.
Yeah. 100%. I was like, wow, just 2.5 years, Kara. You're like, you're a pro. That's amazing. I feel
Oh,
like we're still working on it.
oh yeah.
It took years and years. And I feel like, it's still the journey. Like, we have amazing strategies and whole structures in place, which is great. But it could be like we had a phenomenal win the other day, and then yesterday is like a nightmare. Like it really does feel like that. Like, did we have any progress? What's happening? How did we get back here? And that's okay. And I think, to your point, I think sometimes it feels like old habits die hard. And we have to remember we've been operating this way, maybe in our last relationship for many years, maybe even since, again, the beginning of our development.
Yeah.
So if we think of it that way, that was many, many, many years, for some of us, decades and decades, that we've been operating that way. So we have to recognize it's not going to change overnight, but it's really valuable and it can change. And I
Yeah.
think the key is consistent action and practice, and don't do it all at once, because it's just not going to happen that way. For those shifts to stick, it's really about taking a bite-sized piece and doing it over and over again. And don't worry, you will trip up and fall on your face, and that's okay. And you can get back up, dust yourself off, and try again. And that's really the name of the game. But to your point, it's about asking yourself those difficult questions and being willing to look. And right away, for me personally, when I was stuck in my physically and emotionally abusive relationship, I couldn't look. There was no way I could even hear what my needs were. I was just in complete and utter survival mode.
Mhm.
What I started to do is listen inward, and it took a while for me to want to hear before I started to hear and start to get in touch with some of that. So again, just please remember, it's never too late. It Regardless of where you are, you can always move forward and create something really, really beautiful. You won't stay there forever, but it does require some initial steps to move yourself forward. So, and again, you can start right now, and you can start with something simple like, what do I need? What am I feeling? Right. And identifying feeling words for what you're feeling, getting really, really honest, brutally honest, uncomfortably honest, and also sometimes sensations, because they could be an indication of something. And I think one key important factor to this is a lot of times we tend to label feelings, and we think that some feelings are good and some are bad. And the
Mhm.
reality is there's no such thing as bad feelings. They might feel uncomfortable. We may have gotten messaging from others that they're bad or unacceptable, but I think even that is worth leaning into. Like,
Mhm.
why do I feel this is bad? Why is it so uncomfortable? But I promise, like you said before, Cara, those things served you at some point. They were protectors for some
Mhm.
reason in some way. So when you lean in and instead of shying away from them, you actually explore, like, hey, what's going on here? There's powerful insights that are underneath when we have the courage to be with that and explore what's there.
Yeah. Yeah, very well said. Feelings are information. Just
Yes.
like your blood pressure, your I don't know, any other metrics
Yeah.
that a doctor would take. It's information of the state of you,
Yeah.
right? And telling you something, right? And so when we judge them or attribute labels to them, that's not helpful for us to actually move forward to where we want to be. It just makes
Yeah.
us feel worse. So, raising the awareness and not pushing them down and actually addressing them when they come up. And sometimes that can be hard, which I think is why the work that you do and the work that I do can be supportive in that, because we're objective. We're not in your day-to-day life. So we're
Yeah.
able to see things and see how you're showing up differently than you see yourself showing up. And we're able to hold you accountable. Like you said, sometimes some days you make progress and then the next day you revert back to an old pattern, and that's okay. It's helpful to have someone be able to lovingly call you out on it and be like, okay,
Yeah.
wait a minute, first we did this and now we're doing this, what's going on there, right? and
Mhm.
it's and it's just coming from a place of curiosity and to sort of not make it feel so heavy.
Mhm.
uh, but having that support of a professional to sort of help you navigate what all of this means, um, can really help you in the journey of growing and moving forward.
Absolutely. And the tools, right? Because there's different ways to access some of this. So we have the ability to support you by providing different ways and different options that you might not be aware of. And ultimately, what this comes down to, I think, to your point, Cara, like sometimes we're so close to it, we don't see it for what it is, which is also why coaches have coaches. I've
Right,
invested
exactly.
in a lot of supports personally of all varieties, and I
Yeah.
continue to do so.
Mhm.
But I also think, we have extensive resources available to us, others in our network, so we can really shortcut your process into the most effective and efficient one for you, and one that feels accessible, because sometimes something is wonderful in theory and may even be effective, but not necessarily for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, there's so much value in having that support. Sometimes you just need somebody on, in your corner. But the other piece that often comes up around this, sometimes we like to enlist our supports through loved ones, family
Yeah.
and friends. And even though that's phenomenal, of course, they adore us and they want nothing more than for us to feel better and validate us and for us to be successful. But the challenge is that unintentionally, they sometimes speak to us in a way that we came in mad about this one thing and then we left getting really angry with these 7 other things that we didn't even remember prior to the conversation. So there's a way that professionals who deal with this day to day and deal with people in your circumstances have of validating you, but also, like you said, lovingly holding you accountable and showing you things that aren't necessarily so obvious right away or not even maybe so easy to see. But because we have so much experience, we can guide you through that process. And again, it can be almost detrimental unintentionally and unfortunately when you come with some of this to your loved ones because they just don't know how to support you. They want to, they just don't know. They don't have much experience with this. If they do, it's something of a personal nature and it's like a one-off experience, which doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the right way for you to navigate your specific journey and your specific circumstance. So there's so many reasons why leaning into and just exploring with a regular phone call. I think many of us offer free
Mhm.
discovery calls, assessment calls, connection calls, whatever you want to call them. So I think just giving yourself permission and again, really making it a priority to connect with different professionals so that you can identify who do you resonate with, who feels comfortable to be with, but also knowledgeable that you feel like, okay, I can go on this journey with this person. That's the number one is having that fit.
Yeah. Yeah, and loved ones definitely 100% have their role in this
Yes.
part of your
Yes.
in your journey, right? The way I
Sure.
view them is they're the people that you go out to dinner with, go grab a glass of wine with, go see a
Yeah.
movie with, go travel with, right? They're the
Yeah.
emotional support. But
Yes.
when it's time to actually do intentional work and development on yourself, it's better to have a professional who's not involved in your
Yes.
day-to-day life because it's just like you were saying, one day we make great progress, the next day we fall backward. And to feel like you have to like you can't fail because you don't want to show that to your friends or family or
Yeah.
you don't want to show them maybe not so positive sides of you, maybe you're projecting or whatever. But when you're with a professional like us, it's easier to open up because we don't we have no reason to judge you. We're not going to be interacting with you in our personal lives. And so it's sort of like just a beautiful space to just not have to worry about that extra layer of emotional connection with the other person and to just get right down to what you want to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And it just feels nice to have the permission and freedom to do that. Another reason we're not going to judge you is we've seen so much that
Yes.
where, we understand the spectrum of how this can look and it can be really difficult. And so we can again just gently guide you and support you in a way that is accessible to you.
Hmm. You
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. Well, should we talk about some resources and supports that we have for folks who might be in this situation where they are maybe finding new love after divorce or separation, or perhaps are for the first time coming into a relationship and merging lives and sort of building something new together?
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
I have a free resource on my website for people who are on the other side of divorce and what they want their next chapter to look like. It's a really good opportunity to take inventory of everything you've learned and decide what you want your next chapter to look like, how you want to get there, and what might be getting in the way, right? And again, what do we want to leave in the past versus what do we want to take forward with us? So that can be a great jumping off point just to like start the process from the personal individual level. And then of course I offer one-to-one coaching. as Maria said, free discovery call to sort of get started to learn more about that, as well as test out our connection, see if it's comfortable. If it's not, I know tons of other coaches who I can refer you to. The most important thing is like Maria said, making sure that you feel safe and connected with your coach. So those are some of the ways that I can sort of help, again, on like more of the individual side. How about you?
Awesome. Well, as you said, Cara, so for those who may be facing a new chapter or starting a new chapter with kids, or perhaps, wanting more support with how do you move forward with your co-parenting relationship, either during or post-divorce, you can check out my free resource, which is called Family Fusion. It's 6 steps to collaborative co-parenting. And there's also just some truths too about what the biological parents relationship is and needs to look like. And so for those who may be a step parent, what they can expect and embrace. And also for those who are parents, I mean, it's confusing, right? Nobody's done this before, likely. So this is your first time. So it's got a whole bunch of tips of a variety of things. It addresses how to get clarity for yourself, how to build a relationship with new children for those who are step parents, the role of a parent in the complicated dynamic of a new partner, but then you also have your co-parent to contend with as well. And also, even if both of you are coming into the relationship with children of your own, how do you navigate, creating a foundation for them to have consistency and stability and workability. So it's just jam-packed. So I strongly suggest you go and get that. And I also do free discovery calls. Assessment calls is what they're called. And we can explore all of the ways that I'm able to support you. I work with couples as well as one-to-one. And all of that is available at my website at synergisticstepparenting.com. And did you mention, Cara, where they can find your awesome resources?
No, I'm a great marketer. It's pretty easy to remember, though. It's carafranciscoaching.com. And so if you are catching this, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, my website will be somewhere on my profile. But just in case, that's what it is.
Awesome. Yeah, so please be sure to go and check out Cara's amazing stuff. She's got so many wonderful resources, and strongly suggest that you book an assessment call because you never know.
Likewise. Well, thank you all for joining us, whether you're here live or watching the replay. And Maria and I will actually be here the same time next week, talking more about the blending of the family and the transition for the family structure when you are bringing in a new partner to the mix. So let us know if you have questions about today's topic. Send us questions for next week's topic. And we'll catch you all next week.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Cara.
Thanks, Maria. Bye.
Bye.